central bank reconciliations. So more of kind of a functional side of things, but just want to go over kind of the different options that you have with banking and Business Central. Let's see if I can get this. So a little background on me before I begin. I am a CPA. I actually used to be in public accounting before switching over to consulting. So I did that for a few years beforehand. But I've been in consulting with Business Central for the past 4 years. So used to do NAV and then obviously upgraded to Business Central when that kind of came out. And I'm currently at Bamboom Cloud. So I know we have a couple other presenters from this Microsoft partner, Mary Thompson being one of them, but yep, I'm a consultant for them right now as well. So just want to go over kind of a high level of what we're going to talk about today. I will preface this with saying that I am in the United States. So I'm going to be on the North American version of Business Central. I know that sometimes banking is different across localization. So I think the concepts will be the same, but you might have a little bit of differences in your screen options and kind of your functionality if you are working in another localization. But I'm just going to go over the bank account card, kind of best practices, I think, of setting it up, talking about the subledger and the connection to the GL, and then we'll get into the payment reconciliation journal. So just, I think, a kind of underutilized way to connect with your bank and post payments and reconcile. But then we'll also talk about kind of the traditional bank reconciliation worksheet as well. So let me just go ahead and jump into Business Central. We'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to first bring up the bank account card. So basically, this should be every single bank account that a company has. You want to have a bank account card for it. So even though they might have, one bank and they have a checking and savings, or 5 bank accounts within that one bank, you basically want to have a bank account card for each individual account, just so that you can better reconcile and not have them all lumped together. A lot of people also use bank accounts for credit cards. So if you have a company credit card that you want to do a reconciliation against, you can actually set up a bank account card that is for that credit card as well, and you can kind of utilize the same functionality in that as well. So I think that's kind of sometimes Business Central has a little bit of a gap in how to do credit cards. I usually say set them up as a bank account and kind of use the same process. Getting into the bank account card though, obviously I think the most important field right here is this bank account posting group. So again, I think as was discussed a little bit before, Business Central works off subledgers. So you're going to have your bank ledger, which is the subledger, but then this posting group is what actually connects it to the GL. So if you see here, we've got quite a few set up, but again, my kind of best practice is that for each bank account card that you have set up, you want an individual GL account to link this posting group to. The reason being, if you have 5 bank account cards and you're all lumping it into one cash account, it gets really hard to reconcile. So I say for each bank account card, have one GL account and a one-to-one relationship through this posting group. And one thing you'll notice on this bank account card, you can get to the balance. So if I drill into here, this is going to be my bank account ledger entry. So again, this is that subledger that I'm talking about. If I go to the GL account, so let's just take this 10100 for example. We always want to make sure that the bank account card balance, this 300, always ties out to the GL account that is linked via this posting group. So in this case, it's the 1010, the 300. The reason being is because in reconciliations, Business Central doesn't look at the general ledger entries that you post to this GL account. It looks at the bank ledger. So if you're trying to reconcile and you've posted something straight to this GL account without hitting that ledger, you're never going to be able to reconcile the bank. It's always going to be off. So you want to make sure that your GL account always ties to the balance on your bank ledger. A really easy way to do that, and I say set this up at the beginning. As soon as you go live, you want this turned off. But there's a field on the GL account card called direct posting, and you want this to be off. I'll go ahead and turn it off and then just show you. The reason why you want this off, meaning you don't want the green filled out, is so that people can't post directly to this GL account without hitting that ledger, so that you're never going to be out of sync and you're always going to be able to reconcile every entry that you've posted to your cash account. I'll just show you really quick. I'm just going to go to a general journal. Because I turned that off, if I go into my journal entry and I'm trying to hit my cash account to record incoming or outgoing cash, and I click on this right here, it's actually going to give me an error, and it's going to say direct posting must be equal to yes. So this ensures that no one can post directly to this account. What they have to do instead is go to the account type called bank account, and then they would actually select which bank account they're doing the transaction in. So again, this just ensures that the ledger is always hit and it's always in sync with the chart of accounts. So setting that up right away will save a lot of headache, because I think as people get up and running, they're used to maybe just hitting the GL account cash. And if they don't have that kind of message that says, don't do this, go to the bank account account type instead, a lot of times it gets out of sync and there's some cleanup involved. Okay, going back though, so yeah, that's the bank account posting group. Again, one-to-one relationship, make sure the direct posting is turned off. I'm just going to drill into the ledger again, just talk about kind of what fields are on here as well. So when I go to this ledger, you know, we've got our posting date, document number, all kind of the basics that's going to show up on the general ledger as well. But this open check mark, this is really how reconciliations kind of start to work. So open meaning you haven't reconciled against your bank account. So these are transactions that you posted in Business Central, but you haven't confirmed, okay, yeah, they showed up on my bank statement. This is truly reconciled, you know, with my cash or credit card accounts. So right now we've always got, you know, we've got 3 open ones. But as you start doing reconciliations, these are actually going to turn off when you've actually checked the box and marked it. So one thing to always know is that when you are trying to do bank reconciliations, if you're like, why isn't this line coming in? It might have already been reconciled. So knowing that this is how kind of where the bank reconciliations look, I think is nice for troubleshooting. Okay, the other option on the bank account card that I think is really nice is you can see this bank account linking status, and right now we've got it linked. There's a ribbon up here called Bank Statement Service, and this is basically where you can link these accounts. I'm going to go ahead and unlink this, and then I'll just show you the linking process. So because I've already set up bank account cards, I'm just going to choose the link to online bank account. This is actually through a service called Yodlee. I'm not really sure if that's the correct word, but this is a kind of third-party app, but it's automatically an extension in the North America version. It's very simple to use. You just have to accept the terms in use and enable it, and then you're able to do this linking of the bank statement service. If I didn't have this enabled and I went to link, it would actually just ask me to enable it as well. So not that much of a setup. But this is really nice because this actually links to your online bank account. So instead of us having to like import a file via CSV or, you know, something to get the bank's transactions in Business Central, this is just a live connection. So in this example, I'm using my Chase credit card account just so I can show you guys. So once you do the link, you'll type in what bank you're trying to connect to, and it's going to ask you the username and password. This is the same username and password as if you were going into chase.com and entering your credentials to see your transactions. Hopefully I remember my password. And you can do this with as many banks as you have. So even if you've linked Chase, you know, your next account could be Bank of America or something else. It's not limited to just one connection. When you enter the credentials, though, it's going to think and look up to the bank statement. Hopefully give us some results soon. Okay, and you can see right now I've got 3 accounts on my Chase account. So really, you would ideally want 3 bank account cards so that you could link each up one-to-one. I'm just going to go ahead and push OK because we're just doing some sample data in here. This next screen, though, this is commonly gets missed. People just end up pushing close, and then it actually doesn't link the account. But because I had multiple accounts in my one bank account that I logged into, this screen is asking you to actually link the bank account up. So over here, you want to make sure you're filling out, okay, this Freedom Unlimited should go to the Freedom Unlimited bank account that I created. And then also, you know, your other one should be linked as well. I think I already have this linked, so we'll just leave it as that. But this is where you can actually get, you know, the individual accounts linked to your individual BC accounts. So when I actually push close here, it's going to say it's linked, and you can see the link status here. You can always unlink and you can always refresh. Sometimes if you change your password or something like that, you've got to refresh the account, and that just reestablishes the connection. Once we have that linked, though, I think it makes reconciliation a lot easier and kind of a lot cooler in what Business Central can actually do. So I'm going to then navigate to the payment reconciliation journal and kind of start to talk about how that can look. So I'm just going to go up here and search payment reconciliation journal. This one right here, and typically this would be a blank screen. You can see I've already got some going on, but basically to create a new payment reconciliation journal, this is where you can do a few different things. So I'm going to get into the example of what you can actually do in this journal. But to start off, you can go to process and import bank transactions. So this is first going to ask you which bank account you want to deal with. I'll go ahead and choose savings. And then the next option is the date range that you want to pull in. So the payment reconciliation journal in my mind is really good for doing like daily or weekly reconciliations versus like a true formal month-end reconciliation. So this is nice if you have a lot of transactions and you kind of want to get ahead of your reconciliation, or just make sure, you know, BC is kind of the most up to date. You're not waiting till the month end to post all your cash entries or whatnot. I would say this is a really good place for a user to stand, do it once a day or once a week, depending on the volume. But here it's going to ask you the dates. So you can set in the range. You know, you can obviously backdate it if you want to start doing January or whatnot. You can do that. You can have an unlimited range. I'll go ahead and just choose, they just default it to a week. What that does, though, is it just connects with that Yodlee service, brings in my bank statement lines that are on my online bank account, and we'll bring this in here. So you can see here I've only got one transaction that I imported, but there would be a list of these as well. I'm going to actually go into one that I created just to like get kind of more data. Let me go into this one right here. So I created just kind of a sample one, or I brought in some information, then kind of changed it around so I can just kind of talk about the different scenarios that you have. One thing to know is when you bring this in, if I then go and delete a line, or maybe say like, okay, I'm not ready to actually reconcile this, I want to delete this batch, the service knows that you deleted this line, so you can always re-import. So if you've imported it, you're not ready, or you're not ready to actually post anything, you can remove it, and on the next import, it's going to know that that line wasn't posted and bring it in again. The same goes true with when you actually import, and if I posted 3 of these 4 lines, the next time I do that import process, it knows that those 3 lines made it through, were actually posted in Business Central, so it's not going to double input if you bring in the same date range. It kind of has that tracking behind the scenes. But what it brings from your bank account is the transaction date, the transaction text, and the transaction amount. So these are all kind of posted entries. So if it's pending, it's not going to bring in yet into this Business Central yet, obviously, because it could go away or it could change or whatnot. So these are all kind of the official posted entries. So sometimes there's a lagging, or you're expecting a line to come in, but it's still technically pending in your bank account. If you personalize your screen, there's also a few more fields that you can show as well that sometimes it has information. Again, it kind of just depends on what bank you're using and kind of how they've formatted to work with this. But there's this additional transaction info. So sometimes this will have kind of secondary text or whatnot. There's always a transaction ID. This is how the system knows like what was posted and what wasn't posted based on this ID. There's some related party information as well. So I always say like, you could always expose this if you're thinking this transaction text isn't giving very good information. Sometimes it's formatted to go into this line as well. Go ahead and push done. There's also, if I go to, I can't remember where it is. 1 second, it's somewhere in here. I think it might be here, no. There we go. Under the line section, there's this bank transaction details. So this will actually give some more information as well. So again, the transaction ID, the date, the amount, the currency, if that's, an issue, and then the transaction type, account ID, again, just some more information if you need to see it. But once we're here, you kind of have multiple options. So the first thing that I always like to say is, once you've imported your bank's transaction, the next step is to try to let Business Central do some reconciling matching for you. So there's this apply automatically field. And this will actually have Business Central think, see if there's any entries that it can actually just kind of post and reconcile for you. This apply automatically, just so you're aware, there is a table that the rules are actually posted in here. So this payment application rules, basically there's 3 different match: confidence, low, medium, high. And this is how Business Central tries to think like this might be a match with this line. You know, I'm pretty confident, not as confident. And I always just use the defaults here. If there was a particular situation that it's not picking up any matches, though, you could get into this table and try to maybe toggle it a little bit to get it to kind of generate more matches. Usually, though, again, it's the document number, trying to match with transaction text, obviously the amount, trying to match with amounts in BC, and then it looks at the transaction date to make sure it's not looking for, you know, a January transaction and an April one. But I always just use the defaults. If this is blank for some reason, you can always restore defaults to have it come back in. I'll go ahead and push this, though, to see if we get any matches. It looks like we've got 3. So I'll kind of talk through them. So payment reconciliation journal basically can do 4 functions. The first one, I'll just go kind of step by step into the 4 different functions. The first one is in this example line right here. So on 414, it's saying we just have a customer receipt of $1,500. I know this is money into us, right, because it's a positive amount. So in our bank account, we've got $1,500. And you can see that there's a match confidence right here below. So I can always drill into this and see information, but I also think this information right here is kind of a good summary as well. So basically what the system did is it tried to look for any open invoices that we've posted for this $1,500 amount around April 14th that maybe we haven't created a cash receipt for. So, you know, the manual process, right, would be create a sales invoice, then go into your cash receipt journal and record the cash. Well, if that hasn't been done yet and you're using this payment reconciliation journal, this line can actually record that cash receipt for you. So you don't have to record the cash and then reconcile. You can simply bring in the cash receipt straight from this line and then post it. So this is nice if people are like electronically transferring you funds, you know, via ACH, and it's showing up on your bank account maybe before you even go into your ERP system and, you know, record the cash receipt. So in this case, you can see it's looking at the customer, right, because this is a positive amount, and it's looking for, it found a match with customer number 1776, and it's for this invoice. So really quickly, if I went to this invoice just in the system, so you can just kind of see how it works. Look for this invoice, I can see here it is. This is the customer. It's due on 5/1. So again, it's looking at that date. The amount is the 15,422, and it's got a remaining amount and it's not closed, meaning we haven't created a cash receipt against it. So it's thinking this is a pretty good match to actually create the cash receipt. One thing I always say to do is as you're going line by line and reviewing these matches, there's this button that you can push to call accept applications. Obviously, I imagine, you know, your lines are probably going to be 20 to, you know, 100 lines that you're importing at once. So if you're going line by line, a nice thing you can do is accept this application. It's going to move it to accepted, and then you can move on to the next line. And this is just nice if you like go away, come back up, you know what kind of you reviewed and made sure you're okay with, and then can kind of pick this back up. So that's scenario 1 is posting a cash receipt against an open invoice for a customer in the system. The second scenario you can see right here on 4/13, I had an Amazon charge for $8. So this actually might be maybe a one-off expense. Maybe this is a credit card in my example, so maybe you just charge your credit card. You don't actually have a purchase invoice or a purchase order in the system for this, and you don't really care to track like your Amazon vendor, right? You're just kind of going off, this is a one-off expense. So what you can do here is you can actually post the expense in the system, because basically this is saying it doesn't have a match, and this is a good way that you can post the expense without having to go into a general journal or a purchase invoice, type out Amazon for this $7.57. You can do it straight on this screen. So right here, simply what you can do is if I come over here and just ignore this high text, I'll cover this in a little bit. I'm actually going to remove this application and we'll just act like it had found no match. So right here, we've got a $7 expense. I can come over here where I usually would see, the customer invoice or whatnot, and I can just say, okay, I just want to hit this GL account. Let's maybe call it office supplies, right? This is just a one-off expense. What this will do is when we go to post this will hit our cash account, right? So our bank account for negative 757, but then it'll also hit this expense account straight from this posting screen. The limitation with this, as I said, though, is that this doesn't actually track the vendor. So if you are wanting to track, like this is an Amazon, right, vendor. So if you do want to track your annual spend with Amazon, you would want to go into a purchase invoice, actually create that invoice, and then you can apply it to this. This is just going to hit straight expense to cash. Okay, so that's scenario 2, right? So we've got open sales invoices for customers, but also then just posting random expenses that we haven't recorded in Business Central yet. The third scenario, we've got this line right here for advertising expense, and you can see that it actually it found a match, but the account type is actually bank account. Really what that is meaning is that it thinks that there's a purchase invoice in there. You created the purchase invoice for $90 for advertising, and you also recorded the payment in Business Central. So you then went onto the payment journal and paid this vendor the $90. So essentially this entry is closed and your payment triggered the bank ledger, right? That is negative $90. So this is just simply saying, yep, this $90 is already recorded in the system. You've already recorded the payment. This is simply kind of just reconciling it with your bank ledger. So this is account type bank account for that reason. This line, when I post this payment reconciliation journal, is going to create no GL impact because there's nothing more to post. It's just simply going to reconcile the bank account if we choose that option, which we can get to in a little bit. But just marking that open box on that bank ledger entries, if you remember, to closed, saying that there was a true match. So that's the third scenario, just simply reconciling bank ledger entries. The fourth scenario is very similar, right, to the customer one, but it's more on the vendor side. So again, here I've got a utilities expense for $119. It doesn't look like it found a match, but if I go into this match confidence and I kind of want to check and see, well, I think I posted this already in the system, why isn't it coming up? This will open this payment application screen, and this is going to show you every single open entry in the system. I always say sort by the account type right here, because open entry meaning it's going to be open sales invoices on the customer side, it's going to be open purchase invoices on the vendor side, and then it's also going to be open bank account entries that you haven't reconciled yet. So this is kind of just an easy way to sort if you've got, a long list. This just kind of helps you narrow it down. But I can actually see that I've got a vendor invoice for $118 that it doesn't look like it actually caught and applied automatically. The reason being I can see is that this transaction date was on 4/11. And this purchase invoice was posted on 4/16. So this was my fault, right? I just posted this in the system, probably a typo. I should have said before that because you would normally pay something before you actually recorded the invoice. But that's why it didn't pick it up, because it's thinking that it's not possible that you paid it before you actually created the payable in the system. But if I did want to kind of manually apply it, say, okay, I know that that's not right, but this is the actual transaction. You've got these two fields right here. You've got the applied amount, and then you've got just this applied checkbox. So what you can do is you can just click the checkbox. It's going to give me this warning, just ignore it. And you can see it autofills this applied amount. So basically you're going in there and doing the match manually versus having the system think for you. You can also, like if it's a partial payment, right, you can also go like this and change the applied amount. Is why there's two different fields to indicate, what this line actually pertained to. So I'll go ahead and click close, and you can see that match confidence changes to manual, and that's because I did that. You can see also the applied amount, right, is only 50, and I technically got $68 left over. That I still need to figure out, do I need to post an extra expense with, or is there another open invoice that I need to apply it to? Kind of different scenarios you could work with. But that's the fourth scenario, right? So that's open purchase invoices. Sorry if you hear my cat. That's open purchase invoices on the vendor side of things. if I did want to kind of move this 68 and actually create another line, right, to actually create this expense, there is a process called transfer difference to account. So this will, because I've selected this line and I click transfer difference, it's going to say, okay, you've got 68 remaining, right? Because you've only applied 50. What GL account do you want to hit? And this is where I could hit utilities, maybe because this is just an extra expense that I haven't recorded the purchase invoice for, and I just want to hit the expense to cash account. If I click OK, it just creates another line, and these two are linked, so it knows, you know, that the total is 118. It's made up of these two amounts. So just to kind of summarize, right, there's 4 scenarios that you can do: open sales invoices for the customer, open purchase invoices for the vendor, posting expenses, and then just reconciling the bank account entries that you've already posted. Another nice thing I like is this map text to account, which you might have seen when it came in. This is really nice that, hold on one second. Sorry, guys, I had a cat yelling at me. Okay, so this map text to account. So this is really nice if you're getting a reoccurring entry on your bank statement and you want to kind of have the payment reconciliation journal start to add a little bit more logic, get a little more smarter. This map text to account is really nice. So a good example is this is like this utilities expense, right? Maybe I have an expense that it's automatically going to charge my credit card or my checking account every month. Maybe I don't necessarily care to create a purchase invoice for it and then record it. I just want to be able to record this expense every month. This map text to account can come in handy. So if you click into this, you can say, okay, whenever this transaction text equals, let's just say this Amazon marketplace, what GL account do I want this to go to? So you've got a debit account and credit account. Really, this is for like if it's a negative or a positive that's coming in. For the most part, it's usually only one, but maybe you get a credit on your utilities you didn't use enough or something like that. You can indicate 2 different accounts. For the most part, though, this is usually the same because you're just hitting the expense, and if there's a credit, it would go against that expense as well. But this is where you can say, okay, I want it to always go to the 61,300 utilities expense. Because I've set that up, when I do this process apply automatically, you can see the match confidence turns to high, and it's because it's a text to account mapping. So it's got that logic in there. You told me what to do, and that's why I think it's a high. So then you could go and just accept the application, kind of as you get comfortable. So if, your matching isn't generating a lot of good matches, I think using this map text to account every month and just making it a little bit smarter can really save some time. Once I've got all my lines, reviewed and I've accepted them, the next step is posting it. So when you come to this posting, you've actually got 2 options here. You've got post payments only and then post payments and reconcile the bank account. So post payments only will go and post those cash receipts, go and post those payment journals, those random expenses, but it won't actually mark the corresponding bank ledger entry closed, because you're not wanting to reconcile at this time. You're just wanting to post the payments that aren't in the system yet. A lot of people like to do this because they like to use this on a daily, weekly basis, but maybe they then want to do still a formal bank reconciliation at the end of the month, just to make sure they've accounted for everything. There's no weird outstanding transactions or anything like that. So people will use this as just a post payments only, and then do kind of what we'll talk about in a little bit, a formal bank rec. This post payments and reconcile the bank account, we'll just do that one extra step of if you've got any lines that are just linked to this bank account, it's going to just mark them closed on that bank ledger so that you don't need to reconcile them, kind of double effort. You don't have to then go and do a formal bank rec and check it again that you've reconciled it. So it's kind of user preference on what you prefer. If you do this, there are some limitations with doing monthly bank recs that I'll kind of talk about, but you have to be really careful about if you're reconciling here, it's obviously not going to show up on the monthly reconciliation, so you're going to get out of balance and not be able to have the whole story on that monthly bank rec. Okay, that's kind of the main, I think, benefits of this payment reconciliation journal. kind of, I guess the final thing I'll say is I always tell users, like, when you go and import these bank transactions and you're starting to go through this, you really don't want this journal sitting out there for days on end. So you want to import it, you want to go through the matches, accept them, you know, figure them out, and then post. The reason being is if you leave these in an applied state, they basically kind of can mess up the system in that they're in this applied state, but you haven't necessarily posted it, so some double entry can happen. A good example is, like, if I have this vendor right now, right? So I'm saying that this payment was already made. There's $50 right here for this open invoice for this vendor. Now, because I haven't posted this, it's kind of, this invoice is sitting in a kind of temporary applied space. So if someone goes and does the payment reconciliation journal, it can mess it up because they're saying, okay, I'm trying to pay this invoice because it doesn't look like it's paid, but I'm not able to pull it in, you know, because this temporary application is posted to it. So you really want to come in here, match it up, delete any lines that you can't, because again, you can always re-import it and then post it, just because in the back end of the system, it can kind of cause some issues. So that's kind of my one. We've seen a couple of clients struggling with that because they've just got batches sitting out here, just applications that are kind of messing up the other users in the system. Okay, once you post this, I'll just show you on the bank account card. If I go to my bank account and I go to statements right here, you can actually see the payment reconciliation journals that you've posted. And you can actually undo them. So I could drill, I don't have any in here, but if I had one in here, I could drill into it, see the lines that I've posted, you know, the applications that I did with it. If I made a mistake or anything though, I can undo it to be able to kind of redo it and start over. So just knowing that this is going to hold all the posted payment reconciliation journals right here. Okay, I'm going to move on then to kind of the formal bank rec. So this is done by searching the bank account reconciliation, and this is what typical users think of when they think of a monthly bank reconciliation. A lot of other systems, right, have this, so this is what they're kind of comfortable with. So there's two actual formats in North America that you can use. By default, it starts in the format that I'll show, but then I'll show the other format as well. So to start a bank account reconciliation, kind of same process, new. I'll just click into this one. So this is the kind of out of the box standard one, and you can see we've got two columns. We've got bank statement lines and then bank account ledger entries. So the bank account ledger entries are exactly what you see in your subledger, right? So if I search bank account ledger entries, this is going to be the table that it pulls from. The bank statement lines are ideally, right, the actual is going to be like the Yodlee process. So if you do have it linked up, what you can do is go under bank and import bank statement, and this is going to act exactly like it does on the payment reconciliation journal. You can choose your date, right? So like from 4/1 to 4/20/21, you know, for the whole month, and then import it that way. And that's going to populate this left side. So the idea with this bank account reconciliation is that you are tying out the left side to the right side, making sure that every entry is accounted for. So a lot of users do like this. I will say though, I think a lot of users coming from like QuickBooks or Xero or Sage, which just from our experience, this is not the view that they're used to. They like the other view better. So there's pros and cons with both, I think. I think it's just, again, user preference and what you feel comfortable with. This, just like the payment reconciliation journal, has a match automatically, and it uses the same logic from that match table that I showed. So this can also help kind of speed things up to where it's going to match the left-hand side to the right-hand side entries. And then you're just kind of reviewing it, maybe doing some other adjustments. I'm going to just show the other view just before I get into kind of like how you look at the difference. So let me go ahead and delete this. So to see the other view, there is a trigger on the general ledger setup page. And it's right here, Bank Recon with Automatch. So if you turn that off, just push OK and then refresh your screen. If I then go to my bank account reconciliation, so same page, nothing different there, and I go to process new, just choose this one. It's going to look different. So there's no two columns. There's not the bank statement and then the bank ledgers. Really, this view is just looking at the bank ledger. And ideally, you would have your bank statement from either like the PDF or whatnot on a separate window, and you would be kind of comparing the two. So kind of the first step to this is you'll obviously enter your statement date, right? So if we're doing a March bank rec, statement date of 3/31, and then right here you enter the balance in the statement. So whatever the actual bank statement is showing you, that's what you would enter. To generate the lines to actually kind of clear things out, the next step you have to do is to suggest lines. So when I do this, it's going to just bring me up some options. I always tell users to do both. It's just going to look at checks and deposits, so plus and minuses, and then I'll push OK. And this is actually going to generate lines on here. Let me actually, I think I clicked the wrong one. Let me do the checking one just because I think it has information. There we go. So this would generate the lines. The number one complaint I get about this view is that like you can only show like 4 lines at once. And obviously if a bank rec is like thousands of lines, this gets really tedious. So without doing any development, what you can do is you can personalize your screen and you can hide these tabs right here. So this is basically just like duplicate information from the above, so it doesn't really add any value. But by hiding these, and up here as well, hiding these, and even sometimes I'll hide the statement and the total cleared, this gives you more real estate. So if I did have more than 3 lines on here, you know, I would actually be able to see 10 lines versus 3 lines. So I know that's kind of a common user complaint, is like the screen is so small and not really adjustable. So that's one way around it without having to do development and actually, you know, change the display. But the kind of process you would do here is you can see you've got every bank ledger entry and then you've got this cleared column. So then you would go in, start comparing your bank statement, right, and then clicking cleared to every entry that actually is on your bank statement line. Another kind of quick tip I always tell users if they are using this view is like, again, if you've got 1,000 lines and like most of them are cleared, you're just maybe going in and like, you know, unchecking the few that aren't cleared that you know of. There's a process right here called mark lines. And you can choose which ones you want, either like this deposit tab or the check tab. Again, just different positive and minus. But you can choose this mark lines as cleared and then push OK. That's going to mark all the lines as cleared. So again, not that valuable when I just have 3, but if I had 1,000, that's nice. And then I could go and just uncheck the lines that aren't truly cleared, just to kind of speed things along. So those are kind of my 2, I guess, quick tips. There's also the adjustment section, right? So if you weren't using the payment reconciliation journal and there are quite like bank fees or anything like that you do need to make the adjustment, and maybe you don't want to just go to a general journal and do it, you can actually use this as kind of the general journal to make transactions that are included in this bank statement that you want to reconcile against. So pretty simple, just same like the general journal, you know, you choose the account type, the amount, and then, you know, where the expense wants to go, and it'll be included in the reconciliation. With both formats, though, sometimes, you know, these fields aren't that friendly, or especially on the other format, sometimes you're like, what do these fields mean? You know, how do I get to actually posting this? So I think a really nice report is this test report. And I always say print all the details, because a lot of users also ask for like a list of the outstanding checks and deposits at this amount of time. And this report will actually show everything in a nice kind of consolidated view. So if I go to preview really quick, this is the same report on either format again, so nice to just kind of be aware of this. But ultimately, before you can post the bank rec, right, the difference has to be 0. So this screen, I think, just gives like a nice summary of here's my GL balance, you know, here's the statement balance and all my outstanding, and ultimately, right, the ending GL needs to be the statement balance plus your outstanding deposits. So the system won't let you post this, obviously, until you get to 0. So I think this test report kind of gives a nice view of like, here's a summary of everything that's outstanding, you know, your deposits and checks that you're actually clearing, kind of gives a nice summary. One thing, though, that I think is a bit of a gap in bank reconciliation is that once you post the report, you actually can't reprint this report. So a lot of people want like a list of the outstanding deposits and checks at a certain point in time, especially for like audit purposes or, year end. So I always suggest before you post your bank rec, you do want to, like, I would save this, print it, save it to your computer so that you can always reference back to that, because once it's posted, unfortunately, you can't go back to the posted reconciliation and reprint this report that gives you all these details. So once I kind of post this, I'll just say, I will say there are two different views that I would be aware of in terms of like looking at the posted transactions. So on the bank account the bank account card, again, if I go to related, this statements, so kind of a little quirky again, but this statements is going to be all the payment reconciliation journals and also all of the bank reconciliation worksheets that you did in that first view. So with the Automatch, and it has the column on the left and the column on the right, that's going to be posted. When you do post it, you can always look at it in the statements list. But if you are doing the view that I was just on, the more kind of traditional view, that's going to be, again, just a little weird, but that's going to be posted in this posted reconciliations, where you can always look at it. You look at it, but again, you can't print the report. The other kind of, I think, downfall with this is you can't undo this reconciliation. So if you've posted something and you made a mistake, you really kind of have to do like an adjusting entry to net that out and then like create another open one. It's not as simple as just pushing undo like the payment reconciliation journal has, to kind of undo that. So it's a little bit harder to undo things via reconciliation, the more traditional way. But that's kind of a common thing I get is, where's my post reconciliation? And again, just depending on what version you're using, they're technically in two different spots of Business Central. I think that's it. I hope that was just kind of a good overview of the different options. I'll go ahead and stop now and open it up to questions if anyone has, or anything else.
Thank you, Molly. Hello?
Hey, I think I lost you for a second, or...
Hi there, Molly.
Okay. All right, I can hear you now.
Excellent. So that was a really, really great, say, crash course, should I say. And let's have a look at the questions. There are some questions. Just a lot of good feedback. Yep, so just big thanks from Steve, Chinksy, Kumar, and Gaurav saying excellent. So lots of great feedback there, positive feedback.
Thanks,
so
guys.
Molly, do you have any say final comments regard? Oh, here we are. There's a question. It says, if we are moving from NAV to Business Central, you think it would be a good idea to start with the bank statement and reconciliations to show some incremental values and the progress?
Yeah, I think maybe versus the payment reconciliation journal. I think a lot of users like the payment reconciliation journal is a nice thing to introduce in like a phase 2. Again, if you're doing a new implementation, it's sometimes overwhelming and you just want to look at, the thing that you're used to, which is more traditionally the bank account reconciliation worksheet, page. So you definitely start with that. You can always turn on the payment reconciliation journal at any time. So it's not like you have to start with phase 1 at the beginning. Hope that answers it.
And Caroline is asking, does the service support all banks?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one thing I commonly do is I go to the bank statement service link bank account, and if you start typing in your bank, it'll bring up a bunch of the URLs. You want to make sure that your URL is actually listed. So I haven't run into any issues with like the big banks. Again, I haven't really dealt with a bunch of the small banks though. So I think there are some limitations to just be aware of with the connection. If it doesn't support it, you can always do that CSV import to still utilize the payment reconciliation journal or, the bank statement lines. It's just you have to map that in Business Central. So it's not as easy as the setup.
Well, I am, but I mean.
Okay, so we're having lots more people joining late. It's not a problem. Okay, Molly. Well, I think that's the last of the questions, really. I think everyone is really satisfied and happy customers. There is one. I think there's one question here. It's saying here. No, it's not a question. It's more of a comment by Steve, saying you can import the CSV version in BC version 18 with import tool. And then, yep, and Ravi Savan is saying, thanks, Molly, you are awesome. So an overwhelming response from for your session today, Molly. I think you're going to be getting one of the top sessions so far. It looks like it's a really outstanding sentiment. So well done, Molly. Really, really high value session delivered by Molly. So round of applause to Molly, everyone. So yeah, we should definitely. Molly should definitely get an award for one of the best sessions. Who thinks? Definitely the comments speak for themselves. So very, very high value session for the community. Molly, superstar. Look out for Molly. She's going to be, she's going to be trailblazing and a lot of exciting things to happen. So I just want to thank you, Molly, for delivering this session. Really, really great. And really well received. Do you have any final kind of closing comments?
I don't. Thanks, guys, for the positive feedback. Happy to help in any way.
Awesome. So Molly, feel free to share your connection details in the chat window if you wish, either if it's a blog or Twitter, LinkedIn. Feel free to share so that the community can keep in touch with you.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you, Molly.